Hello, hello, hello. I think we are live. And hello, my name is Emily. If you don't know who I am an integrative health coach and yoga teacher. I also live with chronic illness and am working every day to manage that illness. So I thought I would keep it kind of simple today, and I thought we would chat about home cooking. I was like, yeah, that'll be pretty easy and no problem. And then as soon as I sort of just went to the next thought, I knew I was in for it. I get the discussion ideas from the wellness journal, from the integrative health pillars, if you will. I kind of refer to them as pillars. And they're what is referred to as the primary nutrition in integrative health. And so actually secondary nutrition is food and our day-to-day diet of what we eat. But in the primary food pillars, there is, of course, home cooking. Do people just play with their hair all the time in these videos and you're just like, can you just not? That is exactly what happens. And yes, I can just not. Or I can try, but I'll try most to just not let it be a distraction to me or to what I want to say. Oh, now I feel a little freaked out. I'm just gonna touch my hair now. Okay, I will avoid it. Concentrate on what I'm doing. And that is trying to explain to you the in-depth process that is home cooking. Now, I went into it like most people, straight into the deep end, 7 days a week, home cooking for myself. You know, that's the budget. That's what I knew growing up. We didn't almost ever go out to eat, so home cooking was always at home, and we pulled it off. And, you know, it was a different time then, and it was the best that my mom could do as a single mom. And we all have our own sort of home cooking childhood versions and stories. Mine was primarily a story of packaged food being warmed up and then served as the dinner or as the meal. We won't go too much into that because we could spend a lot of time on that. But please do know that I'm not coming from a household that has their own vegetable patch in the back and a mom that wears an apron with, that being her primary chores during the day was to cook and clean and to care for us as a family. No, that was not the case. My mom was working a full-time job and all of the cooking responsibilities were hers until my sister and I could cook for ourselves. And when that happened, we did cook for ourselves. And that is when my home cooking journey began. It began just as soon as I could reach the stove, pretty much. My mom never delegated specifically cooking dinner to us. She would always still be in charge of cooking the dinner. And I wondered now if she had passed on some of that responsibility more to us as sort of like a learning opportunity. Could there have been less responsibility on her plate and more growth in the case of my sister and I? So, you know, it's that is what home cooking is. It's kind of like, in order to reduce that amount of responsibility that it is, because it is a huge responsibility and not everyone does really have the time. And I think that one of the large reasons behind not having the time is not having the organization. or the skills to organize, or the time set aside to gain the skills or the reflection in order to then go out and organize and then go through with the plan. So I do think that that we can improve upon this, particularly if we were thrown into any kind of a deep end with it. I want to lean into my slides a little bit today. I did make some. All the slides get turned into a workbook so that you can use it like that. Let me see about sharing my screen. I'm continuing to work on being a good public speaker in these videos, to use the time wisely and to come prepared. I will get better at that, but I will mostly just be myself because I can't help it. And why would I want to? So here are the slides as I work through putting them in presentation mode. So you can see home cooking, food is medicine, and it really is. So if you're living with a chronic illness like I am, you may have heard that there are different types of nutritional therapy out there. I'm sure you are no stranger to that overall concept, but if you haven't done a little bit of the work to dive deeper into that as to which foods you may be intolerant to, which foods just might not be working for you in this moment, foods which you might be entirely allergic to. And okay, what is a food allergy? For example, a food allergy could be, a type of food that gives you a psoriasis flare, a type of food that obviously gives you a very allergic reaction like a rash, throwing up, going into a flare of some kind. But there are other symptoms like, for example, psoriasis or brain fog or fatigue or general moodiness, sweating and heat and feeling an urgency. We won't go too much into these details, but let me know if you want to have a more one-on-one conversation about that. But I am not a nutritionist, and it will never be one of my jobs under this umbrella to tell you what to eat. Just that I encourage you to discover what your food intolerances might be, and your food intolerances might change over time as you come to get more balanced in your gut, more detoxified, let's say, in your gut, for lack of a better word, and you just come to know your needs in your body more, taking time to eat properly and cook properly, etc. So I forget sort of what point I was trying to get to, but know that this is all under the same umbrella of home cooking, and sort of how do we get our head around this massive day-to-day chore if we are going to take care of ourselves. And if we have a chronic illness, that may be required extra. And when you first come to understand that, and it might take a long time because our doctors, much like me, are not nutritionists, and they might not know how to inform you and or guide you, so they just might not. That is unfortunate and annoying, but it is still our job to get over it and to move forward towards taking care of ourselves. And unfortunately, the doctor is very unlikely going to do that for us, even if they do tell us the name of particular nutritional therapy. They will not be coming home to do the shopping or the cooking or the cleaning. That will all be us. Even if we get a nutritionist, that would very likely still be all us to do. At the very least, it would be all of us to organize it, right? even if we did have the funds and the time and the wherewithal to go out and get a nutritionist, or to go out and get a personal cook, or a personal shopper, whatever it might be. Maybe we have a very supportive partner that is willing to take on some of that responsibility. That always will be passed along. Somehow we're going to have to take some responsibility for the food that is going into our body and how it is being digested and just what is going on there. When we do leave it all up to someone else, I would say that we could consider the sustainability of that. And if we don't think that that will always be available to us, what will we do when it isn't available to us? And will we have the skills and the know-how and the organization at that stage? Or will we once again feel lost in how to home cook, in what to home cook, in how to find even the time, etc. So food is very much a medicine, and if you are actually using it as a form of therapy, then you might hear the term nutritional therapy. I use that term sort of because I just don't like the word diet. It just depends on if you are on a lot of like really sucky diets or going through the motions of diet culture, right? So it's not that the word is inherently bad, just that I don't want to imply that your diet is a diet. So sometimes we refer to this nutritional therapy. Full transparency, I am currently on a diet. I do refer to it as nutritional therapy. I have tried many diets in my life and had subtle body dysmorphia and even food dysmorphia. That is when, in case you don't know, okay, what's the best way to describe it? Dysmorphia is sort of when you've taken something out of its real context, right? So, there have been times when I have thought that I have a bigger body than I actually do, that I, look bad in something, or like something fits and it actually doesn't, because it is too small or too big, or just, taking my body out of its context and just sort of dysmorphing the whole concept of my body in my mind. And that is often painful and difficult to shake, and it can obviously go in an extreme direction. And the same can happen with food. And so when I first started nutritional therapy and trying to work out what foods I might be intolerant to, I didn't have any support really for it, and I didn't know really what I was doing, and I didn't know how to approach it. And based on my past relationships with food and eating in general, I had some food dysmorphia because of the difficulty of nutritional therapy. I think I have come out the other side of that. I have been working with elimination diets in order to discover what I am intolerant to, because I have a gastro illness and also a hormonal condition, which sort of can trigger some food intolerances. So can our general environment, right? Our behavior and our way in which, our manner in which we are eating. So it could be less that we all are intolerant to particular foods, but that we all are intolerant to particular eating environments or eating and food constitution and preparation, if you will. So again, this was discovered through a few years worth of work for myself that I discovered on my own, and that might be different to yours. But I learned that I could not eat very much raw food. and or cold food, particularly in very hot or very cold months. This makes eating particular types of foods in the summertime difficult. Think of a lot of salads that we eat in the summertime and the fresh vegetables that are available to us locally in the summertime. Again, it was just a process that I went through. I also cannot any longer eat while driving, if you can believe it. No burritos behind the wheel anymore for me, right? It is pretty wild what I tried to get away with while also trying to digest food. And you name it, I did it. And it's embarrassing. And it's not really how I would like to do things anymore. And it's taken a long time for me to get out of those habits of eating at my desk, of eating at the computer, of eating in front of the TV, of eating while walking, eating while driving, eating while talking, eating while cooking, eating while doing anything and everything. So I still do it sometimes. For example, I still do occasionally watch TV while I'm eating, and I'm very cautious of how it's going for me. And it almost never works as well. And when you start to observe that, then you may begin to notice if that is correlating with not comfortable digestion. So it really might not have anything to do with the food itself, but the manner in which you're eating it. Raw, cooked, stressed, fast, while doing something else, distracted, etc. Not while breathing, too much water, not enough water, that kind of a thing. Too many carbs, not enough carbs. Too cold on a hot day, too hot on a cold day. Too late at night, too early in the morning. This is just a whole thing to work out. And that in itself will take time. And it will have bumps along the way. But if we're going to get to the stage of like, but what's for dinner? Then we're going to have to muscle up and carry on with that process of what are we able to eat and how are we able to eat it? And then bearing in mind that that will change from season to season and from year to year, like as our illness improves or gets worse, or as we age, etc., or as we move from one country to the other, etc. So you get it. So then I have made a table of contents, and like my table of contents just ended up being a bunch of questions that I sort of had before even getting to like the juice, right? If you will, the meat. What do I like to eat? So yeah, what do you even like to eat, right? What you like to eat might be different from what I like to eat. And, you know, we don't actually require as much variety as we think we do. When I was first putting together my very first meal plan a few years ago, I thought I was going to be eating like 3 different meals a day, 7 days a week. But then it turns out that I kind of just wanted to eat-ish the same-ish food. And I really didn't know that. I really was convinced I was eating all of the food options. And maybe I was. And because I was, right? I really was eating very extravagantly, and I was still cooking for myself, but flavors were such an importance to me in the sense that I was eating Mexican one meal, sushi the next meal, spaghetti, sandwiches, like I don't know, big salads, you know, all kinds of different tastes and flavors, curries, soups, you know, all kinds of things. I've traveled many places. I love spicy food. I love spices in general, hearty food. I'm a big eater. I never had any problem with that. But now that I have refined my palate, I don't really need all of that extra stuff. And what I like to eat has actually been scaled back and has become a lot more simple. So the ambition that I once had in my meal plan, it just was taken down a notch naturally. So if you're thinking like, well, I like to eat everything, and how could I possibly choose, and how could I possibly do away with any number of foods? Really, they're the very, very simple recipes actually have some of the most flavor and are easiest to pull off on a regular basis. And maybe that's just a good place to start at first. What is your food budget? So, you know, we all have these goals of going out and eating organic, or eating bio, or eating gluten-free, or eating only local, or only seasonal, or whatever it may be. But we need to fit that into our budget somehow on a regular basis. So like one week we might decide, oh, I'm going to splash out, and then suddenly we've got all these like bougie ingredients that we don't even know what to use in, and they just end up going bad. So if you don't have a very big budget, I would say go for fresh produce and vegetables, like vegetables and fruit, and make that your primary ingredient, and it'll be kept fairly within budget. And I mean, like everything, like just go again, once again, back to the basics, right? Fruits and vegetables. Okay, well, what fruits and vegetables can you eat? And if you're on a nutritional therapy regime, then you might think, shit, I can't eat any vegetables, Emily, this totally sucks. Like, we're going into root vegetable season right now here in France. And last year, for example, my endocrine advised me to cut back on the tuber family. I think it's like a family of vegetables. We'll just call it the tuber family, the root vegetable family, if you will. They can be categorized differently, fruits and vegetables, but she suggested that I cut back on that might have been what I was intolerant to. Now, I went and spoke to a nutritionist friend about that, and she said, oh, that's old news. That's not the case anymore. But once I cut them out of my diet, it actually was the case for me. I do actually think, excuse me, I do actually think that some of those vegetables were actually bothering me at the time. They might not still, and here we are back into another year, and I have another chance to try those vegetables again. So I've been trying beets again, and I really don't think I had any issue with the beet when I ate it last week. So again, we're not getting too much into nutritional therapy and what I'm going through, particularly from one ingredient to the other, from one vegetable to another, but just so that you know, if you are being mindful of your budget, you may want to steer clear of food trends and just stick with the basics of the most fresh fruits and vegetables and meats, if you're a meat eater, that you can eat. Ideally organic, ideally local and seasonal, free range, etc. If that is out of your budget, then it's out of your budget. Then wash your vegetables, then peel your vegetables, then try it when you can. But that doesn't mean you just throw it out altogether and go back to get a frozen pizza if that's not working for you anymore, right? Sometimes maybe, but if it's not working for you most of the time, then you're going to have to try some vegetables and fruit that are fresh. So what am I buying? Yeah, like what are you buying, guys? Like what's in your cupboards, what's in your fridge, right? If there's something that you know isn't making you feel good, then you probably just shouldn't have it in your house. That is the best way to avoid it, is just to not bring it in your house. So if you are trying to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, then maybe that is what comes into your house. So, over the years that I've been doing nutritional therapy, I still go to the grocery store. I still have food that is in a box, coming into my house. That is the food that I tend to be far more selective with. And I've noticed that that grocery store list of staples and condiments and or sort of the staple food that you have in your house is just less and less and less. It just has happened that way naturally. I didn't really have to try that hard. I had to try more for a long period of time than one difficult period of time. I just had to accept that was going to take time. So my partner and I, now we have Asian rice noodles. The ingredients are pretty much just 3 or 4 different ingredients. We have a basmati rice, a quinoa. I've recently incorporated lentils and white beans back into my diet. I would prefer to use like a dry lentil, but I find that I can soak like a dry bean, but I have found so far that I can handle beans that are already soaked in a can or a jar. So it works better for me. So I try and get bio of those beans, like the organic version of those. And I've only just reincorporated that. We have oat milk as well, an organic mayonnaise and a mustard, like a local French mustard. What else do we sort of have in the box? We get a gluten-free pizza crust, usually once a week. We get Mexican corn tortilla shells that are from Mexico. I don't get the ones that are the American brand, the old El Paso brand. We get some cheese from the grocery store, usually just one type per week, like a mozzarella ball for the pizza, or some older Gouda, which I find tends to have a little bit less effect on me, like lactose or something. We used to just buy the already shredded Edam cheese. And I live here in France, and like it's all like not bad, but it is industrial. And I said at one point, like I'm not eating the pre-shredded cheese anymore. Like it just doesn't have any taste. And I just know it's not as good of a quality because it is more industrialized. And we started to eat a different brand and a different type that was like in a block. And I felt like that was a good step in the right direction. So am I allergic to lactose? No. Am I intolerant to lactose? Sometimes, and I have to tread very lightly. I live here in France, so this is sort of like one of those odd compromises that I make for myself to help reduce stress and food dysmorphia and stay sort of connected to taste. And what I found when I forced myself to not have any lactose or any dairy at all, that I felt really depressed about that and really bummed that I wasn't able to have any of the delicious cheeses, and all of the cheeses felt like they weren't working for me either. The nut cheeses, I can't have that many nuts. I can't have soy, so I couldn't eat any of the soy cheeses. And then that meant kind of no cheese at all. Okay, well, I could do that. And then that takes time. And then so like what little kinds of cheese could I have in between me just getting, say, over cheese entirely? I have managed to get over ice cream and milk chocolate and cream and stuff. I use coconut cream, and I have found a really nice dairy-free yogurt, which is made of coconut. And I would just say, like, what are you buying, right? So that's the question, right? What are you buying? This is the things that I'm buying at the grocery store, for example. You've pretty much just heard the list. We also buy eggs and baking ingredients, like so that I can bake my own goods. So as you can see, we don't really get a lot from the grocery store, which is great because the grocery store costs a fortune these days. I go far more often to the vegetable and fruit market, which we're lucky enough to have here in France. If you are living, Canada way or in the US or, in a lot of different countries, you will likely just be going to the grocery store for your fruits and vegetables. And, they say to hang out in the edge of the store, right? I don't know if you've noticed, but that tends to be where, the fruits and the vegetables, the dairy and the meat, etc. So, oh, suddenly my armpit hurts. Sorry. So what are you buying? And like, how do you know what to buy as well? When I first started home cooking and sort of teaching myself how to home cook, I put together a little grocery list and I laminated just because it just made it easier. And what else did I do here? So I knew which foods I was going to get from the store. And sometimes you need to go to different stores, especially here in France, or because the stores are smaller and don't have everything that you want in one place. It can be a little bit annoying, but also can be organized. You can work it out. So that's what I've done here. So the international store, I would get certain things to butcher, and then the vegetables and the fruit, the largest list, and then just from the store stuff. And then on the other side, I had some meal planning, and this has been, broken down over time. It used to be big. It used to have a lot more meals. Each meal used to be different, and now it's pretty basic. And I really only use it if I'm like bored of what I'm eating. So how do you know what to buy? Like, what recipes are you going to be cooking that week? And do you have a list so that you know you have everything in order to cook? That I have, like, you can have a blank of this if you want it, by the way, but you can also go on Canva to create one of these. I recommend that you do that in one way or another. So what are you buying? How do you know what to buy? Kind of a thing. Where and when do you shop? So I think that this is a reasonable question. My partner does the grocery store shopping. He like took 2 hours to do it the other day. And I was like, wow, that is lame. Like, not only were you diddle-daddling, but also I just feel sorry for you because now you have to like do that every week. And that feels like a lot. And it doesn't feel that enjoyable. The store is super big and busy. And I'm so glad I don't have that chore on my list, but try to make shopping pleasant-ish experience, right? You'll need to make time for it if you're going to get the right ingredients and in your budget, etc. And maybe you find out when the organic store is putting their vegetables and fruit out in the day-old bin or that kind of thing. They have a lot of apps for that nowadays as well. And where you can get like food that's about to get thrown away, or like before it gets thrown away. There are apps for that, and that can be a really good way to saving money and to saving time as well, because a lot of the time we seek out those deals and that takes time. So so I do recommend sort of checking out those apps if budget is something that's important to you, but you really are working on eating more organically or something. But I would say that kind of creativity might come later once you've got like more of the basics down and the organization a little bit. But also what I did want to say with regards to where and when is online shopping isn't necessarily more expensive. Or do we need to be that afraid of it? I don't currently do it. I am currently afraid of it, but yesterday or the day before, yesterday, we bumped into some friends and they were telling us how often they do it. And they said that it's like they actually have a really good website, our local store, and that it's a real time saver. We live in the center of an old port, and so they even deliver directly to our house. We can book the time that they would deliver it. And since we have a pretty organized list, I think that that's something that we can pull off. And if we can, then that would really save a lot of time. That would save potentially 2 hours of chore time in our household. So I think that that is worth looking into. So yeah, consider that. Like, also like where. So if you're shopping on like a Saturday and you're going all the way into town to do that, is it possible that you could maybe do that after work one day, like on your way home, if you planned it a little bit better? You put those grocery bags in your car already, you had your list already, and maybe you made it so that you could get out of work early or on time that day, and you just made it a thing. And maybe then afterwards you treated yourself to like, an easier dinner of some kind. Maybe that's the night you let yourself have something from the deli at the grocery store, or something, from a little takeaway that you like. I usually go for sushi because it's pretty gluten-free and pretty fresh still. So, and it's not so expensive, and it has things that I like. So, that could be something. And you could call an order and just pick it up on the way, grab it on the way home as well. So Where and when are you doing your shopping? Am I organized? I think we went over that already. Are you organized? Have you ever been organized to go shopping and to cook and to clean and to eat? Or have you just like, I'm a wing it every week for life? And is it just feeling like totally mismanaged and overwhelming to the point where you're just like, well, I don't want to do any of this. So I'm just going to eat frozen food and or takeaway and or bish bash bosh. I don't really like it. I'd rather just eat this in front of the TV because it doesn't even taste good anyways. And I'm bored and I hate it. Like, do you just hate home cooking? Is this whole like talk just like, ugh, do I have to do that? Yes, guys, sorry, you do. Okay. Am I organized? Bags, list, enough time, unpacking, putting it away well, right? You have to put your food away well. Like, you don't want to waste food, right? Like, let's be grateful and mindful of the food that we're buying, the money that we're spending, the time that we're taking, right? Don't let that sit in the back of your fridge and rot. Somebody worked hard to grow you that or to make you that, and you worked hard to buy that for yourself. You're just going to let it rot in the back of your fridge. Get organized, clean out your fridge. If that's your first thing that you even need to do, start with that. Get rid of your 4-year-old condiments that you're never going to eat that are stuck to the door tray. You know, once you've got a clean fridge and an organized fridge, it's really easy to keep clean. And, you know, if you're eating your food in a fresh manner, your fridge should kind of be empty about once or twice a week, right? Or once a week or once every 2 weeks, right? It could kind of possibly even be maybe empty. You've eaten everything and now you've got to get more. So maybe that's something that kind of is happening all on its own and it becomes easier over time. It's definitely something that I do. I just take out my whole crisper, right? I often don't have much left in my fridge when it's time to go shopping. And so I just wipe down the counters and I stock it back up again. If there's anything in the fridge, I kind of just take it out quickly, the few items, put in the new items, and the older items go at the front. And I take a look at my fridge. I know what's in there. I'm going to eat it. I'm planning around it. If I need to pick up just one thing in order to pull this meal off, well, then I'll go and pick up that one thing, or I'll cook it without that one thing. You know, so am I organized? Is this working? From week to week, is this working? What am I going to cook? Like, what are you actually going to cook? It's all nice, especially when we're in like this really ambitious stage where we're like, I'm gonna cook everything. And no, what are you actually going to cook? What do you have time to cook? What do you know how to cook? Do you know I have I need to edit this better before going on here, no problem. The question is, do I have good cooking supplies? And I don't mean like the best or the most expensive. I mean like, do you have a pan that the Teflon isn't like leaking into your food? Do you have enough plates and bowls and cups for yourself? Do you have a favorite mug and maybe a cute plate that you like? And also on that note, if you really don't have time to be cooking, I listen to this great podcaster. I don't know who she is, but she's just like all about that paper plate. And you know what? Even though I am really in it to win it with this planet, and I am here to take care of this planet as best I can, if you cannot cook for yourself ever, I'd go get some paper plates. Like, if you cannot cook ever because you don't have a plate or because you don't have time or energy or the wellness to do your dishes, then I would go get some plastic or paper plates for yourself in order to work that out. So that you can get over that hump. Like if you're like, Emily, I can barely get out of bed, what you're saying right now is nonsense. Also, you are going to have to figure that out, and paper plates might be one way in which you can figure that out. So is frozen vegetables. So are canned vegetables. I'm not here to be a snob and to shame your food choices. I am here with you on the real planet, I know that this is not an easy thing. What are you really going to cook? What do you have to cook with? What is your cooking situation? I live here in France. I have friends that don't have an oven. I myself have a toaster oven as my oven. In France, sometimes we only have 2 burners. Most often we have bar fridges. I have a small kitchen, like a galley kitchen in my home. You can make things work for you. You don't have to be fussy about it, but it should be safe. It should be clean, and you will need to keep it in mind when you are deciding what to bring home. Do you bring a can of beans home and realize you don't have a can opener? How annoying, right? We've been there. I have been there. So take a look at your kitchen, have a bit of a clean, have a bit of an organized. Maybe you make a list as to what you need even in your kitchen to do some of this. It took me months to convince myself that I needed a muffin tin. I was too cheap to buy one. All of my banana breads were always coming out of my toaster oven uncooked in the middle. I hated my banana bread. I was like, I'm never going to be able to get this recipe right. Why is it not cooking in the middle? I still don't know why it wasn't cooking in the middle. Maybe I just needed to buy a muffin tin. And now I have a muffin tin. I love my banana muffins. They're all cooked the way through, and I enjoy making them every week now. So sometimes it's all about just what you are using in order to bake and cook with, which is messing with you. So if that's the case, take a step back, get the things that you need within your budget in order to cook well. Maybe you even ask your neighbor or a friend if you can borrow it to try it out to see if it's something that you'll actually use. I say that because I think of like those noodle makers, right? Like I think it like julienne's things, right? What do they call it? I don't know. If you know, you tell me. But basically, it's like a grater, right? And it grates, and a spiralizer, and it makes like noodles. So I was going to invest in one of those, and I was like, oh man, this gadget, I don't know if I'm going to ever use it. And I don't. I haven't needed to use it. I can shred with my cheese grater, my sweet potato, and it makes like a fried sweet potato sort of bake, and it works. And I actually like the rice noodles, and they only have the 2 ingredients in them, rice and water. And they're pretty cheap and they're already made and for me. And so, we don't need to be so ambitious all the time if our equipment is basic. What do I know how to cook? Yeah, guys, like I am not a person that has a lot of cooking skills. And so when I got to making a meal plan, wow, a lot of skills were involved, and I kind of didn't know some things, and I needed to learn how to do that. And I really hate wasting food, and I also do not like wasting time or money. And the process of learning how to cook well and then clean, etc., bothered me at first. And what point am I trying to make? And I had to learn how to cook. And I didn't know that I would need to learn how to cook because I'd been cooking for such a long time that I thought I already knew how to cook. And I was discouraged and sometimes quite angry with myself that I couldn't do it. And then I would find myself getting kind of judgmental of my partner and how they cook, or how fast they're able to cook, and whether or not they are clean when they cook or organized when they cook, etc. And there is a learning curve, and we all have to catch up to our bellies and what we desire to eat on a day-to-day basis. And keeping it simple is okay. And that I come back to my first point is, what are you eating anyways? Like, you can eat just simple things, and you can even eat the same things, and you can even meal plan and meal prep, and you are able to pack things away and make it easier for yourself when you have systems in place and when you have skills. And some of those skills are going to be simply organizing and prepping and packing away the food so that you can easily cook a variety of recipes without it being so difficult, time consuming, and messy. How many meals do I hope to get out of this cooking session? Yeah, right. So I speak a lot about this with my partner because he's not a very seasoned cooker, if you will, and he takes a lot of time to cook, and I felt for him. It felt like he didn't really know how to use his time well in the kitchen, and he's getting a lot better at it, um, and now he meal preps. Like he knows, okay, like tonight's dinner is my lunch for tomorrow because I don't have time to make another lunch for tomorrow, but I want to eat a good lunch at work. So I'm going to have to do that. So do that. Make extra for dinner so that you can have a good lunch the next day. And that's perfect, right? That's meal prep and planning right there. That's easy peasy. Get yourself a good work container, fill it up every night. You've got yourself lunch tomorrow, and that's it. Bish bash bomb. You got yourself a meal. I don't know where I get that bish bash bomb from, but that's what you can do. You can have your little fun saying in the kitchen where you're like, yeah, job well done. Good for you, right? You can start going through these processes, coming up with the ways that you like to do it, and maybe creating systems of your own that work for you. So how many meals do you hope to get out of this cooking session? And when I say cooking session, okay, so sometimes what I'll do is like, well, on the day that I go to the veggie market, right, I come home and I actually like wash a whole bunch of my vegetables first before even putting them in the fridge, so that I know that they're washed already when I take them out of the fridge. One of the vegetables that I do that with is the lettuce. I have a salad spinner. I bring the lettuce home right away. I cut off the end and I throw it in the salad spinner. I also do that with my spinach and a lot of my fresh herbs so that they don't get icky and gross. And I try to sort of just tidy all my vegetables up a little bit so that they're well preserved and are easy to eat when I would like to eat them. So sometimes I will peel a bunch of carrots, and I don't quite know what I'm using them for yet. And then I'm like, okay, great. Like I've peeled 3 carrots. I got breakfast, lunch, and dinner to cook for. And I say it's breakfast time, for example. I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to have a little bit of shredded carrot with my eggs for breakfast. And then I'm going to have shredded carrot in my salad at lunch. And then I'm going to have some chopped carrots in the soup for dinner. Perfect. I can do all of those carrots now. So in this cooking session, I got 3 sets of carrots, so think of it as kind of like a Subway session, when you go to the Subway or the salad bar and they've got all those prepped vegetables, and you're able to just like make the salads, make the soups, make the sauces, make the sandwiches, make the stir fries, whatever it is, right? So and then there is the preservation of that if you get too ambitious with that. So again, it's kind of like a system, and it's unique to everyone. I went through like a real hot minute there where I felt I was going to do that weekly with all my vegetables. I was going to put the vegetables in jars with water and it was going to be perfect. And it didn't end up that way. It just didn't work for me. So now I don't do it like that anymore. I scaled that back, and now I kind of just do it in the morning. I cook my breakfast, and then often at the same time as breakfast is happening, lunch is happening, and at the very least, some prep for dinner is happening. I work from home. I cook part of the meals and my partner cooks part of the meals. So that's a shared responsibility in our house, which is great. And I felt like that really helped my partner to value that home cooking. And that's, where did that slide go? Oh, here it is. Is home cooking easy? Right? Like when I came into this topic, I thought, yeah, we'll keep it simple today. Is home cooking easy, right? We underestimate it. Yeah, we underestimate the whole damn household thing. And we underestimated possibly our moms and women and the jobs that are done in the home. And home cooking is a skill, it is a job, it takes a lot of time and practice, and it is not easy. And does everyone know how to do it? No, not everyone knows how to do it. Everyone needs to know how to do it, and everyone does do it probably, but are they doing it well, and are they being kept healthy thanks to it? If the answer is no, then I would say it needs to still be practiced, which is what we're talking about here. So who is going to tidy up? Who and when is this going to happen? So my partner and I'm giving just examples of the process that I've gone through personally. It always was sort of like the person who cooked would not do the cleaning. It was the person who didn't cook would do the cleaning. So I never liked that because I always felt like I was quite a tidy and considerate cooker. I was always tidying up while I was cooking, and then there were very little dishes to be done by my partner, and I felt like that wasn't fair. And then whenever I would have to do the dishes after my partner, I always felt like the kitchen was such a disaster, and like it was taking so long, and like I felt like he was almost doing it on purpose, and it was really irritating that I just eaten such a nice dinner, and now I have to come back into the kitchen and do this big chore. So in the end, we decided that he who cooks is he who cleans. And then if you've cooked and left the kitchen a big mess while you were cooking, well, then that's the big mess that you have after dinner or after lunch or whatever it might be for you to clean up. And I find when this is the case, you learn how to tidy while you cook and how to cook a little bit more tidier because you're more responsible for that mess. So that's the way it now works in our home, and it actually works a lot better. And of course, we go over expectations and we go over standards, and that too takes time so that I can come back into the kitchen the next day when it's my turn to clean and cook, and I don't realize that like it just hasn't really been done that well. So we'll go into that another time, but that is sort of distribution of household chores and tasks, etc., and responsibilities in the relationship. And I have used a model called Fair Play, and it has been really helpful. So we can talk about that at another time. But if you are sharing the responsibility of cooking, how is that shared? Has that ever been discussed? Are there any systems in place? Are there feelings that aren't getting expressed with regards to the distribution of chores in your home? Are you resentful of how much you do one thing and how much your partner does another thing? Is there a lack of understanding of how much you're doing versus how much your partner is doing? Do you feel like there is an imbalance that needs to be investigated? It's not that it needs to actually be balanced, but I would say it should feel generally balanced, and that you should not be upset and resentful to have to do something for yourself and for the relationship. If it is the case, then I would sit down and chat with your partner or your family and whom you're sharing these responsibilities with, or feeling as though you're not sharing these responsibilities with. But tidying up does have to happen, and your kitchen should be clean and ready to go and organized, and the whole system needs to be in place. Is cooking a shared responsibility? And if yes, is there a system in place? So that was my last question on this table of contents. So I feel like we haven't even gotten to what's for dinner yet. If this is your first time considering home cooking and its process, take it one thing at a time. Don't worry, you'll get there. It's going to happen regardless. of how it is happening. Either way, you're going to be eating tonight, don't worry. And as you start to answer these questions and go through them, I bet that food and that experience will only get easier and better and more enjoyable, because it should be enjoyable to cook and to eat. And so, yeah, you see this guy here in this picture, he's really enjoying cooking, but he's seeming very laissez-faire about it, almost like it's easy and simple. And I would say try to keep it simple and easy for the time being. Maybe we need to start again at 0, and maybe every dinner becomes scrambled eggs and toast with a tomato, until we can then add one other meal to that. Maybe the other meal is now homemade tomato soup, toast, and a scrambled egg. And then maybe the following week it becomes a quiche with fresh pastry, organic eggs, and a tomato basil salad. I don't know. But that's, you can graduate to next steps, right? And it can get gradually easier and better and tastier and Instagrammable even. Like sometimes you want to take pictures of your food and take pride in it, and even jot down little recipes that are working for you, etc. Okay, so are you a good cook? I think I went over all of this. Ingredients, yeah, kitchen recipe, ingredients or appropriate substitutions. I definitely substitute a lot. I cook gluten-free mostly and also dairy-free mostly. So yep, get out your coconut milk, your rice noodles, your substitutes, and or your allowances. Like maybe you just cut that one ingredient out entirely, or maybe you throw in your own ingredient. You need to have cooking supplies, pots, pans, a stove, etc. Enough time to shop, cook, and clean, and love and kindness towards those who are eating this food. So if you are working towards a healthy lifestyle, you will need to make food a priority. It's just going to have to be that way from now on. If your doctor doesn't advise you this, and you're thinking, I'm only going to do what my doctor has told me in the name of my health, then ask your doctor about food. Ask your doctor what they're eating, and ask your doctor if he recommends that you go and see a nutritionist, possibly, right? Like maybe he will be on board with that. Maybe he's just thinking that you don't care or that you don't know. If your doctor is not giving you any advice or any sort of support in that area, I would start looking inside internally. Like if you're not getting any of the advice or support from your doctor, I would start figuring that out for yourself, because food is medicine and it's affecting how you're feeling for sure, without a doubt. I do not need to be a doctor or a nutritionist to know that and or to tell you that. It really is so important to the process of health, and there isn't really anyone to do it for us, especially if we have certain needs. So if we have decided to make food a health priority of ours, then we will need to gain a few skills and get a bit organized. This is an important step and often missed when we underestimate the work that goes into taking care of ourselves with love. So yeah, you've been cooking before, I get it. You think you know what you're doing, you thought you had it down, and now you have decided you don't. So you need to go back again and learn how to figure it out. We may need a period of discovery if we have not really put a lot of thought into this. It may take time to discover which foods you like, which foods you can tolerate in that moment, and which foods grow locally, are in your budget, and how to find the time in your day to cook those foods. How to cook them anyways. Maybe there are vegetables that exist that I never even knew before. I'd never seen them. I'd never cooked them. I didn't know their name. And cool, right? Like now I know so much more about food than I used to, and about vegetables and gardening and everything. It's been awesome. I've tried foods that I love now that I've never even tried before as a younger person. So this will take time, like anything. We sort of just get thrown into it and never look back to the basics. Learning some basic meals may help you to get off your feet. You can try new recipes every now and then. Creating a few seasonal menus will be helpful backup for days when you are feeling overwhelmed by choice or bored by lack of choice. Right? So that's the workbook so far for this, for how to home cook. I tried to keep it simple, guys. I'm sorry that it feels like another big one. Revisit this video if you're needing like any guidance. DM me if you want any support or to ask questions or to have someone to work there with you. Again, I'm not a nutritionist, so I do have some nutritionist friends. I could point you in the right direction. Or if you're not feeling like you're at that step yet and you just want to like figure some other things out and then we can start cooking, then yeah, you can take those steps with a coach of some kind, right? We do the wellness journal every Wednesday. This is being recorded, so you can come back to it. You have the workbook. Good luck. Don't worry. Take it one step at a time. And it can be fun, right? Cook with your partner, cook with a friend, whatever just gets you cooking in general and interested in that process and realizing that it is a process. And that comes along with some learning, will be a great first step, guys. So good luck. And I'm here with you doing the same things, going through the same trials and tribulations. And don't worry, dinner time will come soon enough. We can think about it then. Have a good day, and I will see you on Friday for the 15 minutes of movement. Bye for now.